For our Monday morning quarterback, where we talk about some recent political events, efforts underway to clean up thousands of tons of debris from the Key Bridge. Of course, it collapsed into the Patapsco River last week in Baltimore. Governor Moore urging Congress to approve federal funding to rebuild the bridge. Is that enough? Joining us to talk about that and more, Republican strategist Gabriella Hoffman and Democratic strategist want to welcome in Jessica Ehrlich. Good to see both of you this morning. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So I want to start with you, Gabriella. When it comes to the amount of aid that can go toward the bridge project, obviously near and dear here in Baltimore, when you look at federal aid, though, I mean, this is something that could have happened anywhere, right? So you have to look at it that way from the federal perspective. How much should the federal government be pitching in here to help? The cost of the bridge itself, the cost of the bridge, plus what else is impacted economically in the region, or none of the above? What do you think?
Yeah, I think all of us looked in horror when the bridge, the Francis Scott Key Bridge collapsed, and that certainly is worrisome, and it's going to affect shipping and various different industries relating to car manufacturers, coal, agriculture, energy, and what have you. But the federal government actually is sitting on a lot of money from the Bipartisan Infrastructure Act of 2021, and I think if we're wanting the federal government to respond in kind without, being fiscally irresponsible, I think they have to look to money that they already have appropriated for roads and bridges. And they have about $40 billion or so that they could be spending towards this relief effort. I was looking over the data over the DOT under Pete Buttigieg, and they only have maybe about $950 million, set away for that. So they already have money. I'm a little worried that if they appropriate new money, it could go wasted, and the money that they already have, they can use and hopefully expedite the rebuilding process.
Jessica, what do you think?
Well, I mean, we've seen this happen before. Essentially, all the money that was in the infrastructure bill is needed so that we don't have causeways, bridges, and other things collapse like we saw in Miami or in Minnesota previously. When a bridge like this collapses, I think Gabriella's right, there is a huge impact on the national economy because this is, as we all know in the DMV, a vital lane for shipping that goes internationally and brings vehicles, all these things from across the country. It's not just those 15,000 jobs in Maryland. So this is a national vital interest that this be replaced, that it's done so with alacrity. When the bridge collapsed in Minnesota, it only took Congress, under Bush about 2 weeks to get the funds allocated to get that bridge back up. And it was not of as vital of importance as this port area is. So hopefully we can see this move through Congress fairly smoothly. That was, back in 2007. Things have gotten to the point now where everything becomes a political football and nothing gets done. Hopefully we'll see this move. I know they've got $60 million allocated from emergency funding, but it's going to take probably closer to $2 billion in order to get this repaired. And hopefully moving as soon as possible, because right now there are millions and millions and millions of dollars worth of equipment and vehicles and products from the United States sitting there, and people who are in the DMV who are not able to work right now.
So that's the key. And I wanted a follow-up on this with both of you. And Jessica, I'll start with you first to 2 points. One, do you limit the federal aid to the physical infrastructure itself of the rebuilding of a bridge, or do you also have federal aid to help the area and the region that is not working right now and maybe has supplemental losses on top of the physical bridge itself? That's one, Jessica. And then part two is, if you do go and you look for new funds, is there a concern that perhaps that political football might come with something else attached to it?
I mean, there's a big chance that this funding may end up getting attached to funding for the Ukraine right now. For any of the supplementals, there's been a lot of talk about that, I know already, that it could be attached to larger supplemental funding that's going on. And Republicans in the House and Democrats both have spoken about this already, so that is quite possible, particularly given the way that things seem to be moving like mud through Congress right now, and they have a lengthy list of things that they want to get through, whether it's coming from the House or coming from the Senate. So that is a major issue. I think there is definitely ways that there can be, and probably actually through the infrastructure and through DOT is, as Gabriella said, actually helping those workers and employees in the region and businesses with some stimulus or things during this time that the bridge is being rebuilt, or hopefully starts to be. And then also, of course, there's been talk about, going after the shipping container and the business and the company that owns that, and eventually recouping losses. But I think that's down the road.
Yeah, and that's what a lot of the lawmakers and local officials have said as well. Gabriella, I want to give you a chance to respond to that quickly as well, to both points. If your plan doesn't go, which is tap into funds that are already allocated, and you do have to introduce something new, do you attach something to it, or do you leave it as a standalone? What's your best strategy?
Yeah, look, my co-panelist said correctly that most likely it'll be attached to some sort of other funding bill, whether it's for border security or Ukrainian funding or something else, just because that is where we are with how Congress is oriented right now, very divided there. So certainly I expect Republicans to attach it to some, and some will feel very aggrieved, of course, because some other places where there hasn't been funding, I heard Senator Rick Scott talk on the morning shows this weekend saying that they're very slow to give relief aid to certain areas like his state in response to hurricane funding. So Republicans are worried about the politicization of how these relief funds are allocated, a natural concern, of course. So we will see, of course, certain gamemanship perhaps, or perhaps negotiating tactics to maybe get Democrats to come to the table more and not just really operate on a partisan lens when it comes to their preferred infrastructure projects either. So it has to be both coming together.
Long process, a lot to play out and a lot to work out in a short amount of time for a relatively long process. Thanks both for joining us this morning. Republican strategist Gabriella Hoffman, Democratic strategist Jessica Ehrlich. Appreciate it. Good to see you both. All right, let's switch gears right now. 7:30.